Hello friends, welcome to Buried Truths, where the dust of time is swept away and history's deepest secrets rise to the surface. Let's view the video. The Iron Brigade. The most feared Union soldiers of the Civil War were no ordinary regiment. Clad in black hardy hats and full-dress uniforms, they stood out not just in appearance, but in courage. Formed from the hardy men of the Midwest, they quickly earned a reputation for unbreakable discipline and savage tenacity under fire. Initially called the Black Hat Brigade, the unit was composed of volunteers from Wisconsin, Indiana, and later Michigan. These were farmers, woodsmen, and laborers, rugged men used to toil and hardship. When they were forged into a fighting force, they brought with them a level of toughness rarely seen in the ranks of Green Union regiments. In 1861, the brigade took shape under the command of Brigadier General Rufus King. Unlike many other Union outfits, this brigade adopted the regular Army's distinctive black hardy hats. Their unique look soon became symbolic of their resolve and bold battlefield presence. The hats made them memorable and feared. Their official designation was the 1st Brigade, 1st Division, I Corps, Army of the Potomac. But soon their actions would earn them a name that no other brigade could claim. From their earliest drills, observers noted a fierce discipline and combat readiness even before they faced real enemy fire. The first serious tests came in 1862 as the brigade was assigned to John Gibbon, a West Point graduate with strict standards. Gibbon's stern training instilled elite precision and control. Soldiers began to regard their brigade not just as a unit, but as a brotherhood of iron, men bonded through shared suffering and determination. Gibbon's leadership fused the Iron Brigade's raw strength with strategic discipline. His insistence on discipline, training, and readiness helped shape the brigade into a force that would soon face the crucible of combat and pass through it with legendary resilience. Though the war had just begun, the Iron Brigade had already laid the foundation of its myth. They were not just soldiers. They were a symbol of Northern resolve. Their fearsome legacy began not with a single battle, but with the fire of discipline, unity, and identity. The Iron Brigade's legend truly began at Bronner's farm in Antietam, late August 1862. It was here, near Gainesville, Virginia, that the brigade would first earn its grim reputation. Facing off against Stonewall Jackson's seasoned troops, they fought toe-to-toe, a rarity for Green Union brigades, and did not yield. On August 28th, the brigade engaged Confederate forces in the twilight, advancing through thick woods into an ambush. What followed was a brutal slugfest lasting over 2 hours. The Iron Brigade suffered heavy casualties, but held firm. Their unflinching stand stunned both their enemies and their own commanding officers. John Gibbon's leadership was crucial. Riding along the line amid hissing bullets, he shouted orders and refused to allow a retreat. Soldiers remembered him calm, determined, and unshakable. His discipline had turned farmers and clerks into fierce warfighters. Bronner's farm marked the brigade's bloody initiation. The cost was high, nearly 800 casualties out of 2,000 men. Yet the Confederates were also bloodied. More importantly, the Union High Command took notice. This small brigade had stood its ground against one of the most feared generals in the South. Their courage rewrote assumptions about volunteer troops. Following Bronner's farm, the brigade marched into the Battle of South Mountain. There, at Turner's Gap, they again led the charge. Against fortified Confederate positions, they stormed the heights under withering fire. Their aggressive advance forced the enemy to fall back, another victory under their growing belt. It was at South Mountain that General McClellan famously remarked they must be made of iron. The name stuck. From that day forward, they were known as the Iron Brigade. Their identity was no longer in question. They were shock troops, men sent where the fire was hottest. By fall of 1862, the Iron Brigade had earned fear and awe. Wearing their black hats and marching with pride, they now carried a reputation as the Union's fiercest frontline warriors. Their path was carved in blood, but their legacy had just begun to solidify on the battlefield. The Iron Brigade's mettle was put to its ultimate test at the Battle of Antietam on September 17, 1862, the bloodiest single day in American history. The brigade's charge through Miller's cornfield at dawn would become one of the most ferocious engagements of the entire Civil War. Before sunrise, the Iron Brigade advanced into the fog-covered cornfield near Sharpsburg, Maryland. The silence shattered with the crack of rifles and cannons. As the men moved forward, bullets tore through the stalks, cutting down soldiers like grain. It was a death trap, and they pressed on relentlessly. They faced Stonewall Jackson's veterans again, and this time, neither side held back. The Iron Brigade charged again and again, sustaining devastating losses. Bodies piled among the corn, and the field turned red with blood. Still, the black-hatted Midwesterners refused to retreat. Their resolve never broke. General John Gibbon fought alongside them in the chaos, sword drawn, rallying his men. The brigade's banner waved amid the smoke as they closed with the enemy. For hours, the battle surged back and forth. No ground was gained without paying a heavy price in blood and bone. Casualties were horrific. The brigade lost more than 800 men out of roughly 1,600, over 50%. But they held the line. Their stand at the cornfield gave Union forces precious time and stopped a Confederate breakthrough. It was a brutal victory, bought with unmatched sacrifice and valor. Veterans would later say the cornfield was the closest to hell they'd ever seen. The Iron Brigade's actions that day shocked the nation. Reporters called them the heroes of Antietam. Their iron reputation was now solidified not just in name, but in the blood-soaked soil of Maryland. Antietam forged the Iron Brigade into living legends. Survivors were never the same. Their bravery at the cornfield became part of Civil War lore, a harrowing symbol of courage, horror, and unshakable commitment to the Union cause. They hadn't just survived Antietam, they had conquered it. The Battle of Gettysburg began on July 1, 1863, and the Iron Brigade was at the very tip of the spear. As Confederate forces surged into Pennsylvania, the brigade marched into history at McPherson's Ridge, facing overwhelming numbers in one of their most heroic yet costly battles. At dawn, the Iron Brigade moved swiftly through Gettysburg's outskirts and encountered Confederate skirmishers. Without hesitation, they charged into Herbst's woods, colliding with General Archer's brigade. The fighting was intense and intimate. Men shot each other at point-blank range amid trees and brush. Despite being outnumbered, the Iron Brigade overwhelmed Archer's forces. In a rare moment of triumph, they captured General Archer himself, the first Confederate general taken prisoner in Robert E. Lee's army. It was a symbolic victory, but the battle was far from over. Reinforcements poured in for the Confederates. The Iron Brigade held firm on McPherson's Ridge, facing artillery, cavalry, and infantry. But their numbers dwindled rapidly. The enemy flanked them, and their defensive line bent under pressure. Still, they resisted, refusing to yield ground without a fight. As the afternoon wore on, Union forces were forced to fall back through Gettysburg. The Iron Brigade, reduced to a fraction of its strength, conducted a disciplined retreat. They had bought precious hours for the Union Army to regroup on Cemetery Hill and hold the high ground. By nightfall, over 1,200 Iron Brigade soldiers were dead, wounded, or missing. Their fearless stand on day one delayed the Confederate advance and shaped the outcome of the entire battle. But it came at a staggering cost. The brigade was nearly destroyed in the process. Gettysburg was a turning point, not only for the war but for the Iron Brigade's legacy. Their valor became legendary, their losses unforgettable. They had paid the price of glory in full, and in doing so, they had become immortal in the annals of American military history. After Gettysburg, the Iron Brigade was a shadow of its former strength, yet still expected to fight. The Union Army pressed south, and the brigade joined the brutal campaigns of 1864 under General Ulysses S. Grant. The hard marches tested their endurance as much as any battlefield. The Overland Campaign began in May 1864, with relentless movements and savage engagements. The Iron Brigade, now restructured with replacements, entered the wilderness, a tangled, nightmarish forest where visibility was low and confusion reigned. Here, battles were fought at near point-blank range in choking smoke. In the wilderness, the brigade fought desperately. Forest fires ignited by gunfire swept across the battlefield, burning wounded soldiers alive. Visibility dropped to feet. Bullets came from unseen enemies. Command structures collapsed. Yet the Iron Brigade stood its ground, refusing to be broken in the chaos. After the wilderness came Spotsylvania Courthouse, another grinding slaughter. Union forces attacked entrenched Confederate lines. The Iron Brigade advanced over open ground, facing withering fire. At the bloody angle, bayonets, clubs, and fists replaced bullets as the fight turned brutal and personal, an ordeal of pure willpower. Exhaustion set in. The men marched through mud, rain, and heat, surviving on hardtack and hope. Many veterans had perished. New recruits lacked experience but followed their example. The brigade had become a symbol of sacrifice, resilience, and stubborn courage, an unbreakable wall of flesh and steel. The Iron Brigade also fought at Cold Harbor, where a disastrous frontal assault left thousands dead in minutes. Though their numbers were few, their courage remained undiminished. Every step forward was paid in blood. They had become a relic of past glory, but still marched, still fought. By mid-1864, the brigade had lost most of its original members. Yet its banner still flew. Its legacy now lived not just in victories, but in endurance, in the will to press on no matter the cost. The Iron Brigade's hardest battles weren't just with bullets, they were with time. Beneath the fierce reputation and battlefield valor, the Iron Brigade was made of flesh and blood men, farmers, clerks, sons, and brothers. Their bond, forged in fire and blood, was unbreakable. They were more than soldiers in black hats. They were a family, led by bold and compassionate commanders. One of the most revered was General John Gibbon, the brigade's original commander. A strict disciplinarian with a deep sense of duty, Gibbon earned the respect of his men not just through orders, but by standing beside them in battle. He led from the front, never from safety. Gibbon's replacement, Brigadier General Solomon Meredith, was a towering figure known as Long Sol. Though wounded at Gettysburg, he embodied the brigade's spirit, stoic, fearless, and committed. Meredith refused to abandon his men even when seriously injured, becoming a symbol of shared sacrifice. Relationships between soldiers were deeply personal. Men formed tight-knit squads, often with childhood friends or hometown neighbors. They shared letters, food, and memories of home. In the heat of battle, they fought not just for the Union, but for the man beside them, their brother in arms. Stories of heroism and heartbreak filled their ranks. At Antietam, a Wisconsin soldier carried his wounded friend for over a mile, under fire. At Gettysburg, a teenager refused to leave his dying brother's side. These moments defined the brigade's humanity amid the horrors of war. Camaraderie extended beyond life. Soldiers buried comrades with care, using torn uniforms as shrouds. Chaplains held field prayers among corpses. Letters to families spoke of valor and peaceful goodbyes. The Iron Brigade never forgot its fallen, each loss etched into their collective soul. The Iron Brigade's legacy is incomplete without this human side. Their unity, empathy, and loyalty were the steel behind the iron. Beyond tactics and victories, their story is one of endurance, brotherhood, and the deep bonds that turned ordinary men into living legends. The Civil War ended in 1865, but the legend of the Iron Brigade lived on. Though shattered in body and number, the survivors returned home as heroes. Their sacrifice had helped preserve the Union, and their black hats became symbols of defiance, courage, and undying patriotism. Many veterans returned to farming, teaching, and rebuilding the nation, but they never forgot. Iron Brigade reunions became sacred traditions, where old soldiers gathered to remember fallen comrades and battles that had changed them forever. The bond they forged never broke, even in peace. Monuments began to rise, at Antietam, Gettysburg, and other fields where they bled. Statues of black-hatted men stood in silent tribute. These weren't just symbols of military triumph, but of brotherhood and sacrifice. Each one whispered a silent vow. Their story will never be forgotten. Their legacy also shaped the U.S. Army. The Iron Brigade's discipline, resolve, and leadership became case studies at military academies. They inspired future generations of soldiers, reminding them that true strength lies in unity, loyalty, and purpose, not just weaponry or numbers. In literature, journals, and songs, the Iron Brigade became immortal. Writers praised them as the bravest of the brave. Historians called them unmatched in spirit. Their diaries and letters, now preserved in archives, reveal both the horror and humanity of war, keeping their voices alive through the centuries. Today, reenactors march in black hats to honor their memory. Museums preserve their rifles and torn flags. Schoolchildren learn their name alongside Lincoln's speeches. The Iron Brigade isn't just a relic of history. It's a living testament to ordinary men who became extraordinary through fire and loyalty. In every Union cemetery, beneath simple headstones, lie the souls of the Iron Brigade. Though time has passed, their spirit endures. They didn't fight for glory. They fought for each other and for a nation's soul. And in doing so, they carved their legacy into the heart of America. If you're passionate about uncovering the forgotten stories of our past, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Don't forget to like the video if you're enjoying the journey so far. And stay tuned because there's so much more history waiting to be unearthed right here on Buried Truths.